You haven't tasted clean water in 3 weeks. Your lips are cracked and bleeding. The blistering Judean sun beats down on your heavy steel helmet like a blacksmith's hammer. Your body aches from months of endless marching across unforgiving terrain. Can you survive another single day? This was the grim reality for you and thousands of ordinary foot soldiers standing outside the massive stone walls of Jerusalem in the summer of 1099. The First Crusade had finally reached its ultimate destination after 3 long years of unimaginable suffering. Yet you were far from a glorious knight covered in polished armor. You were a desperate peasant who had walked across an entire continent. How did this grand holy war devolve into a brutal struggle for basic human survival? The landscape surrounding the holy city is completely barren. The heat radiates off the rocky ground in suffocating waves. To make matters worse, the defending Fatimid garrison has systematically poisoned or blocked every single freshwater well outside the walls. This is a deliberate and devastating strategy of resource denial. You are surrounded by an ocean of dry dust. Have you ever experienced a thirst so agonizing that it drives men mad? The primary source, known as the Gesta Francorum, or the Deeds of the Franks, written by an anonymous soldier who marched alongside you, paints a horrifying picture of this daily torment. Soldiers were forced to travel 6 or 7 miles just to find a muddy pool of stagnant water. They fought each other for a turn to drink the filth. Many choked on the foul liquid. Is there any greater agony than watching your comrades collapse from dehydration before the battle even begins? The enemy watches your slow decline from high above. The fortifications of Jerusalem are truly staggering to behold. The outer walls stand over 40 feet tall and measure nearly 3 feet of solid stone thickness. The defenders are well supplied, well hydrated, and highly motivated to hold the line. They possess powerful defensive artillery mounted on the battlements. You have no shade, no water, and no heavy weapons. Another eyewitness chronicler, Raymond of Aguilera, recorded that the desperate crusaders dug shallow holes in the parched earth. They pressed their faces against the damp mud just to find a moment of cool relief. They licked the morning dew from the stones and the sparse grass. Horses and mules died by the hundreds, their bloating carcasses adding a sickening stench to the camp air. The environment itself is a weapon of mass destruction. How do you maintain the will to fight when your own body is failing you? Your commanders realize that a prolonged siege is a death sentence. You must attack the walls immediately, but you have no wood to build siege engines. You are ordered to march 10 miles north to the wooded hills near Samaria. There are no roads and the sun is unforgiving. You chop down native timber with dull axes. You must carry these massive heavy logs back to camp on your raw, blistered shoulders. Let us reconstruct what that agonizing labor actually felt like for you. You drag a massive pine log across miles of sharp rocks while Muslim cavalry skirmishers harass your flanks. Arrows hiss through the air from hidden ravines. Your feet are bleeding through your worn leather shoes. You return to camp exhausted, only to immediately begin the construction of the giant machines. Your survival depends entirely on the speed of your carpentry. Under the direction of skilled engineers, you help build a massive siege tower. This is essentially a giant 3-story wooden fortress on wheels designed to carry soldiers directly to the top of the enemy walls. To protect it from the enemy's flaming projectiles, you cover the entire wooden structure in wet animal hides. The labor is intense and hazardous. The defenders launch rocks from mangonels, which are powerful torsion-powered catapults that utilize twisted ropes to launch heavy stones over vast distances. The chronicler Fulcher of Chartres describes the terrifying sound of these machines in action. A single stone projectile from a mangonel can shatter a thick wooden beam instantly. It can turn a human body into a shapeless mass of blood and bone. You watch a boulder crush the man standing right next to you. You must step over his remains to keep working. Can you block out the screams of the wounded as you hammer the final wooden planks into place? Now we must look at the deep counterintuitive twist of medieval warfare. The deadliest enemy on this battlefield did not carry a sword or launch stones from a catapult. The true killer was biological warfare and systemic disease. Most soldiers who crossed Europe did not die in the glorious hand-to-hand combat. They succumbed to dysentery, a violent and painful intestinal infection caused by consuming contaminated water. The camp is a breeding ground for invisible killers. Human waste, animal carcasses, and rotting garbage mix together in the oppressive heat. The bloody flux destroys an army faster than 1,000 enemy archers. You watch strong, seasoned veterans wither away into frail skeletons within days. Your faith is tested not by the arrows of the enemy, but by the slow, degrading horror of disease. Did you march across the world just to die in a trench of your own filth? On the night of July 13th, the final assault is launched. Your commander, Godfrey of Bouillon, orders the massive siege tower to be rolled into position against the northern wall. You are packed tightly into the dark, cramped interior of the machine. The air is thick with the scent of unwashed bodies, stale sweat, and wet leather. You hold your spear with trembling hands. The tower creeps forward inch by agonizing inch, pulled by desperate men on the ground. The defenders unleash a torrent of Greek fire, a terrifying combustible chemical mixture that burns even on water. The flames lick against the wet hides of your tower. Smoke fills your lungs, blinding and suffocating you. The machine groans under the impact of rocks and arrows. Will the structure hold together long enough to reach the ramparts? The tower finally slams against the stone wall. The heavy wooden drawbridge drops down with a deafening crash. You charge out into a blinding explosion of sunlight, dust, and raw chaos. You are instantly engaged in a desperate melee. Swords clash, shields splinter, and men scream in absolute agony. You push forward through sheer momentum and the primal urge to survive. The primary sources describe the aftermath of the breach with chilling clarity. Once the crusaders breached the walls, a horrific massacre ensued. The chroniclers state that the slaughter was so complete that men waded through rivers of blood that reached up to their knees. The city streets became a chaotic charnel house. You are no longer a holy warrior. You are an instrument of pure destruction. How do you find your humanity when the world around you has descended into hell? This ancient horror mirrors a profound truth that we still face in our modern world. True conflict is never about the grand romantic ideals spoken by leaders in distant palaces. It is defined by the endurance, suffering, and sacrifice of ordinary individuals caught in the machinery of history. War strips away every layer of civilization, exposing the raw, fragile core of human nature. We look back at the year 1099 and see a world of iron and stone. Yet the psychological weight carried by those soldiers is identical to the trauma experienced in modern conflicts. The tools of destruction change, but the human cost remains immutable. You haven't tasted clean water in 3 weeks. Your lips are cracked and bleeding. But as you stand atop the conquered walls of Jerusalem, looking down at a city consumed by fire and blood, you realize the ultimate truth of your journey. The most dangerous enemy was never behind the stone walls, and the heaviest price of your survival is the haunting memory of what you had to become to see the dawn.